Hey everyone, welcome back to the Roast West Coast Coffee Podcast. I've got a great guest today, Luis Sanchez. He's the founder and head roaster at Acento Coffee Roasters, a nano-roastery in the Bay Park neighborhood of San Diego. I've known Luis for at least 5 years, but I learned so much more about him in this interview. Luis is someone that I would see at Coffee Cycle during that first year the shop was open. Every day I was there, Luis would be there. And I was there almost 5 days a week, either working or just drinking coffee to get ready for my day. One of the great things about Luis is his ability to immediately connect with people. He has a unique ability to quickly figure out what someone is passionate about and to make a connection with something he's passionate about, and then that conversation is off to the races. He also loves coffee. You'll learn in this interview about his roundabout world-traveling route into the coffee world. And despite his self-deprecating take on it, I know how hard he has worked to get to this point. He was always hustling, is always hustling, always practicing, always asking for feedback, and always exploring everything the San Diego coffee community has to offer. Just take a look at his Instagram at acento.coffee.roasters, and you'll see as many photos of him out at other coffee shops and roasters as his own. And he always has a smile on his face. You can tell even when he's wearing a mask. You'll find links to his Instagram and more in the recap to this episode on roastwestcoast.com. I hope you're as excited about this show as I am. And if you're as excited about it as Luis is about coffee, well, I think this show's going to make it. So fill your coffee mug because it's time for the show. And this interview with self-proclaimed tropical animal, Luis Sanchez of Acento Coffee Roasters. It's great to see you, Luis. Welcome to the Roast West Coast Podcast.
Thank you, Ryan. I'm glad to be here. It's awesome. I feel like a very important person now.
I feel like an important person. You're the one who started your own roastery.
Man, I was lucky with that, I have to say.
You were lucky. How's that? I've known you for a couple of years now, and you have been wanting to start a roastery since I've known you. When you were bringing in samples of stuff you were roasting on your own time, you were working at Swell Coffee, right?
Yeah.
Back then. So I doubt that it's luck. I know there was a lot that went into it. But before we get to all that, Luis Sanchez, you're the owner and head roaster at Acento Coffee Roasters, right?
Yes, I am.
Who are you? What's your background? The people that are listening don't know you the way that I know you, at least.
Yeah.
You know, where did you come from? How did you end up in San Diego? How did you get your start? What's your story?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, as you say, my name is Luis Sanchez, and I'm from Mexico. Well, I'm Mexican-American. I was born here in Missouri. My father was doing his medical residency in Missouri, went down back to Mexico, married my mom, came back. I popped out here, and then he had the opportunity to go back to Mexico and started his own practice with the help of my granduncle. So we went back to Mexico. So basically, I have an accent because I grew up in Mexico, and it's a Mexican accent. Besides the white looks that deceive everyone, right? So I wasn't like in the beginning like everyone else, just went to the elementary, grew up in Mexico, got the accent. What else? Did my uni degree. It was in business and international business. And I started I also wanted to travel, but and my idea was just getting hired in a company where I could travel everywhere, right? Well, that didn't happen. Pretty much, I paid for all my traveling, and then was I wanted always to get out of Mexico, just like experience something else, and that led me to study a master's degree abroad. I applied for different schools in the States, in Europe, and in Australia, and in the end, I got the acceptance letter from the University of Technology in Sydney. So I sold everything, like apartment, car, everything, and just head down to Australia and see what happened. Yeah. So during that time, I was working for my local football club, just called Gallos Blancos. Well, it's soccer, and in sales and operations. So what I wanted to do. It was just grow within the business, and my master's degree was in sports management. So when I get to Australia, I tried everything just to get back into sports and everything because I was studying, and there was people needed me like more. They needed more time of me, or demanded more time from me, and in the sports industry there, I ended up starting just like working in a espresso bar that was called Pasta Roma, and it was the owner was a Uruguayan Australian called Carlos Consentino, and he was when I met him, he was the runner-up like for 2 consecutive years of the barista of New South Wales. So I mean, like he knew a lot about coffee, and he was just like he was a machine. I'm like I was impressed how he just like worked behind the bar, and how good his latte art and everything was. So he started teaching me and showing me the ways of the espresso. So at that time, I'm talking about 2005, 2000, no, I'm sorry, 2006. There was not that many specialty coffee shops in like anywhere, right? Especially in Australia, it was just like something that was just like being created. And so Carlos was using Lavazza, which in terms of like maybe it's not the best coffee, but it's a consistent coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You always get the same quality, the same flavor. You will not get any surprises unless they send you like a premium roast or a different thing that or a blend or things like that. But anyway, Carlos showed me how to be a barista, and then I was like a junior partner for his coffee. So that was my first experience there. And funny thing, the people that were just like going over to Carlos Espresso Bar, when I was in training, when they see me like behind the espresso machine, they will ask for a long black or a drip coffee because they didn't want to make me to make them their cappuccinos or lattes because they didn't trusted me. So I lasted like that like 6 months since like yeah until I was someone was brave enough to give me a go, and then it's like from then on it's like I fall in love with espresso. Yeah, with coffee in general, but especially with espresso. And another point was just like the first time, like well, my early memories of coffee was my parents drinking coffee and greeting. I have to greet them in the mornings or something after drinking coffee. It's just like that coffee break that always killed me. I hated it. I hated it. I couldn't stand coffee bread, and I now I live off of it. So that's just like that's awesome. I actually the first espresso that I tried it wasn't at Pasta Roma. A friend of mine who was Italian, she once make a mocha pot, like you know those little Bialetti things, and she gave me an espresso shot, and I saw that she was pouring sugar, like just like if it was just like I don't know a competition of drinking sugar. It's like well that shouldn't be like that. You have to taste the coffee as it is, right? Yeah, I got like one sip and I said like, yeah, pass me the sugar.
Yeah.
So I just did as it was. Yeah, it was yeah. It's an acquired taste.
Yeah.
It's an acquired taste. So after that, I started like working in the sports, and I just leave coffee alone for several years. And then I moved back to the States from Australia, and I started working for Swell Coffee Company. And as you said, like in the beginning, I was just like I was just like being a helper. Well, and I to the roaster sometimes, but mostly I was behind the machine, the espresso machine, because I'm like I enjoy that part. It's just like a very social thing for me, and
Mm-hmm.
well, coffee is a very social thing for me, and yeah, I that's how I started espresso here in the States, in San Diego particularly.
So why did you choose to come back to San Diego from Australia? What brought you here?
Well, my family is still in Mexico, so I spent 9 years in Australia, and basically I needed just like I felt like it was a right time to just to come and try it, but I didn't want to live in Mexico. I just wanted to be closer to my family as
Mm-hmm.
well. but I didn't want to live in Mexico. So I ended up here in California, first in Northern California, in San Jose, and then I came down to San Diego because I'm like I was coming from when I moved from Sydney, it was winter there, and when I arrived to the States, it was the beginning of winter. So I had like 6 months of winter, and I hated it. It's like I just can't stand it. Like I'm a tropical animal. So when I came to San Diego, it was the beginning of the spring, and it was just like the sky was blue. It was warm. I was having a coffee at Bird Rock Coffee Roasters in La Jolla, and yeah, I said like this is my city. I have to be here. So I went back to San Jose, grabbed my stuff, and drove down and never looked back. I love San Diego. It's great.
That's a wild story, Luis. I mean, I've known you a long time. Well, a long time, 4 or 5 years, but I didn't know any of that.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you come back, you are working as a barista for Swell, and you start helping out with the roasters just on the side when they need somebody extra hands. It sounds like. When did you start thinking, you know what, I want to learn how to do what they're doing too?
Well, I've worked in the production facilities before. I was a manager for Mars back in Mexico for the chocolate co-packing plant. So I like the production side of the stuff of the business, and it's kind of like the operations. That's what I like. So when I was looking and watching and learning how they roasted and everything, I thought it was more interesting, just like that part, like from everything, from just like receiving the green beans, roasting them, packing them, shipping them. I like the whole process more than I was just like liking the pulling shots. At one point, it was just for me, it was just like, well, I would like to stay in coffee, but I want to just like move on towards that area, that section of the business. And so Swell, I mean, like eventually they began to have like a lot more work, and they hired a person like he was dedicated for like as an aide for the roaster, and I was a little bit disappointed because of that. But well, they promote me for like to be like a supervisor or operations manager, well, operations supervisor for the coffee shops. So that was cool, but I still wanted just to keep on going with the roasting. So every time I had a chance to talk to a roaster, I would sit down and ask questions and ask if I could just like join. But because like sometimes I'm like this, it's a very inclusive industry, and everyone is really friendly, and it's like there's kind of like no secrets. But sometimes it just like was like a little bit difficult to just like jump from one company just to be just like watching them how they do things, and go back to my company just like to work. And then it's probably some people might say like, well, if you are working with us, we'll show you everything, but because you're not working with us, we're afraid that you might just like take some of our blends, recipes, or ways of working, right?
So you're learning as much as you can. Eventually, you leave Swell, or Swell closes. I'm not sure which
Yeah.
happened. What happened after that before you end up where you're at now?
After like Swell began to have problems, and I I found a job with some friends of mine at Global Coffee Trading through Vanessa Corrales, who is the owner of Split Bakehouse. She told me from a guy that used to work with Chris, Pablo Lara, who was one of the supervisors there at Bird Rock, that he was just like working for this company, Global Coffee Trading, and they were looking for a sample roaster. And I said, like, this is it. This is what I need to do. That's my foot on the door. So I just rocked up one day, and I met the guy that was just like was going to be my trainer, who is a Guatemalan called Jorge de Leon. And Jorge was, or is, well, I think he was the youngest person to have become a Q grader in the world. So, in terms of like cupping coffee, roasting coffee, he had a lot of experience. So, and he was just like happy that me, just like I just rocked up without like kind of like an interview, just showing interest, because he kind of like tried to just like set up interviews with some other people, and they didn't even show up, or they they started just like telling him off of things that were just like as if they knew, like, or they were gurus of coffee to this guy. And he's like, well, arrogance is not one thing that I want to just like deal with. So I show up there, and it's like, well, I'm here to learn, mate. So just like fire away. So
Yeah.
what do I need to do? Or who do I have to kill or something? Just like let's get it.
I just want to roast coffee and learn how to do it. And learn how to do it the best I
Exactly,
can.
exactly. So I just started like he started showing me, and it was cool because in that company there was just like five. There were no, there were yeah, there were four other Q graders besides Jorge, and like three of them were roasters from before. So I was getting information from like I was able to just like get knowledge from all of them. They show me like when I made a mistake in my roasting, they would just like we will go through my notes and everything, and they would say like, well, this was the reason that this your coffee got burned, or you're under roasted and stuff like that. And it's just like because you are always learning how to use the roasters, or the little sample roaster or the big roaster or anything. You just have to calibrate yourself, and then there's a point in which you actually just like begin to understand how the machine works perfect, or as good as you can, and then you are being able to just like actually work it as it at its full potential.
Yeah, it's kind of like a flow between you and the machine where you understand what is going to happen when you understand the end result. You've practiced enough and you've gotten your time in that you know that if I do this, it's going to do this, and you
Yeah,
kind of become
exactly.
one with your machine. I mean, it sounds like a great opportunity, and you're learning and you're doing this thing that you wanted to do. Why why decide to open your own coffee shop or your own coffee roastery and shop?
Well, I was helping other roasters just to roast their and cup their espressos. Well, Achilles and Yont and well, Global Coffee Trading as well. And it was just like I got tired of working for the man. Literally, I was just like I had enough. Like I wanted just like not to call the shots, but I wanted just like be able to just like be, let's say, free in a way, right? I didn't know. I mean, like I wasn't thinking it things way through, because I'm like now I'm chained to the roastery and the shop. Well, that's part of the show. And but yeah, it was basically because I just got tired, right, and just for working for someone else. And in a way, Acento it's small, or it's a nano roaster, and it gives me the chance to do both things, the production side of it, and also just like be on in the mornings, just like serve the coffee that I roasted, and also just like do the social part of it. So that's what I like. Yeah,
What does acento mean?
acento means accent. So I have an accent, you have an accent. The coffees have their own accent. Some people call them profiles. Some people call them notes. So I just or profiles. So I just started calling them accents. So when you get a bean from Acento or come here to try our beans, I will tell you, well, the accent of of our Mexican bean is baker's chocolate, cherry, and brown sugar, and that's what this Acento. Yeah, it become Acento because of the accents of the coffee.
I've been watching. Obviously, you opened up in the last year when COVID was wreaking havoc and on businesses and people going out and doing all that stuff. It seems like you already have kind of a following. You kind of have like a motorcycle vibe going on in your
Yes,
social media. Is that and you're in Bay Park. You're in the Marina district, which is kind of near Bay
yes,
Park.
yes.
How did that all come to fruition, and where did the vibe of your roastery come from?
Well, I I'm a rider. I'm a surfer, I'm a footballer, but above all, I'm a coffee lover. So, and I just want to create a space for everyone that's like riders, that regardless of what they rode, like bicycles, tricycles, motorcycles, scooters, just like come on over and yeah, let's create this vibe together, right? Or this community. So to the surfers or the footballers, in terms of footballers, it can be any type of football, American soccer, rugby, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I have like I love motorcycles, as I say, like I ride myself, and every time there's riders around, I take pictures of them and just like upload it, especially like coming over to Acento. It's like I'm just excited. And the guys from Triumph San Diego, which are up the road from me, like maybe 3 blocks, they've been telling, well, recommending our shop to their customers, and several have come, and so it's just exciting seeing the motorcycle riders coming over. And then I made become good friends with cyclists. Not only, I mean, like Chris from Coffee Cycle, but there's a group called Pedals and Pints, and Dave is one of his members, and he was like he actually brought them over. So they started like they still, I mean, like they were starting their some of their rides from here, from outside from Acento, and it was exciting just seeing so many people just joining like the group. And it's like, oh, so many cyclists. Sometimes they leave like 20, I think, as the maximum I counted at the moment. But it's exciting to just like see them just like coming over, have a coffee. They're chatting. They're all happy. They're all just like ready to go, all very caffeinated, and just like watching them go. It's just like awesome. It's just like, and being just like part of that community. I love it.
Well, and you are part of that community. One thing I've always appreciated about you is you have no hesitation and a willingness to talk to anyone that happens to be around. I've seen you like walk into a shop and within minutes have 5 different conversations going with different people about different things, and you somehow manage to keep it all straight. So it's been kind of exciting to see from afar what you've been doing. How hard was it to get the roastery open during the pandemic? I mean, did that was that how did that impact you? I guess, was it in ways you expected, or was it harder, easier than you thought?
I want to say I was just lucky because where Acento is, there was a previous coffee shop called Claro Coffee, and it belonged to Maid Lumber, who now are my landlords, and I'm friends as well. Like they're really cool people, and but they decided to shut down Claro after, like, I think it traded for almost a year before the pandemic, and then came the pandemic, and they decided just to shut down operations and not to reopen it. Like they were hesitant in the beginning, and then just like they at some point they decided that yeah, to shut it down completely. And we have a friend in common, and he's a contractor. I called him once because I was looking for a space, and I took him over to Hancock Street to see some warehouses. And I asked him like how much work would it cost me just to kind of like set it up and just like get it like transform him into a coffee shop or a roastery. And he told me about like, hey, I have these friends that they have like an artsy fartsy cafe, and I said like, and they shut it down, and maybe you just have go have a look at it, and then I'll introduce you to them if you want, if you feel like it's if you like it. But by the time he gave me an estimate, and I was just like crunching the numbers, and he told me about like, well, where was it? I came and looked at it, and I loved it. I'm like, fortunately, you haven't seen it in person, but if you see pictures, like, well, you've probably seen my Instagram. But if you look at Claro Coffee or search out for or Google clarocoffee.com, you'll see what it was before. It was a designer coffee shop. It was beautiful. And they named it Claro because Claro is an endemic wood to California. And many of the furniture that was inside the coffee shop was made out of Claro. So that's why they decided to name it Claro. So as I said, like I was lucky because they shut it down. It was already set up. Everything was set up. I just have to just like when I met Brian, the owner of the space and made lumber, and he was just like he was a partner there in I guess he was a majority partner. I don't know how to call it, like the big dog basically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. He was the guy.
yeah, he was the guy to talk to. And Lenny is my friend, or it's a friend in common that he put us in contact. And Lenny told Brian about me, so I met him. I told him about the project, and they like it because I'm like, it's a lumberyard behind it. Like, so they make wood, furniture, chop wood, everything. Next door is Def Brewery, so they brew their own beer. And there's mead, like Lost Coast
Yep.
Meadery is there as well. And there's a restaurant called, a little pizza parlor called Cucina Caprese, which has a wood oven. So everyone around here manufactures or creates or does something like or produces something. So when I told them about the project, they liked it, and they gave me the green light. So it was really easy to move in because I didn't have to move, like basically move a finger. I just have to bring up my equipment, and that was it. They took theirs, took a few benches out, so for me to set up the roaster when I got it, and yeah, that was it. So in terms of like how hard it was, I won't say it wasn't that hard. I was lucky as well because they wanted to get rid of let's say the coffee cart because it's turning out of a coffee cart even though it's indoors. It's kind of like creases, right? He moved his coffee cart into like a space, and I did the same thing. I just moved in a coffee into a coffee cart, and the roaster. I when I hooked it up, I made it propane. So if anything needs to be done, I can actually move the machine without any problems. And that was the last bit of the piece of equipment that I brought in. But literally, it was just like it was lucky. It wasn't that much of a. I didn't spend that much money. I mean, like I set up like I was under the budget that I was expecting, so it was perfect.
It sounds like you're telling me right now that it wasn't that hard, but it's also it's been a decade or more kind of in the works of discovering coffee in Australia and moving back to the United States and working at Swell and practicing your roasting skills, and you just happened to be in the right place at the right time. You knew the right person. All of those skills that you've been building and your willingness to talk to people, brought you to this position where you're getting this opportunity, which is pretty cool. So you've kind of done. You're there. You're open. You're roasting coffee. I'd love to have a coffee with you someday soon. But what are you drinking? What kind of coffee are you making at Acento? What's your favorite roast that you guys are producing? If I were a new customer, what should I come in and order?
Well, the house drink is the Fredo, that is a shot of espresso with a little bit of honey. I stir it, pour it over ice, shake it, and then serve it in a 8-ounce cup. So it's a cold drink. It's a shot of caffeine, and it you can feel it kick in, and then the the how do you call it, the crash is just as bad. So I mean, like it's a really enjoyable drink. I mean, like I usually put a little bit of sweetener on it, but honey in this case. But you can have it without the honey. So by shaking it, it makes like the froth and the melting of the ice with the coffee and the honey produces. It makes the froth kinds of be a little bit creamy. So even though it doesn't have milk, it feels like it has. It feels like it. So my favorite roast, I would say, is our house blend, the Idolo, and I call it the Idolo because Idolo means idol. So I was thinking of the wrestlers back in Mexico. So it's a let's call it the people's champion. It's el ídolo de la gente. So I mean, like I kept like I'll show you. I just need to make the this is
Oh yeah, the luchador.
the luchador exactly. So I just need to make a mask or a luchador kind of like stamp or something for the idolo. That's the last thing that I need to do. I mean, like, I got the name and I got everything else, but I need just to do the luchador. As I said, like I love our blend, but also our single origins are just as good on its own, like the Salvadorian and the Ethiopian. They're beautiful coffees. I outsource some of them from Cape Horn Coffee, Green Coffee Traders, and ICT. Sorry, no, ICT, Inter American, where one of my good friends works there, Pablo Lara. So they've been helping me just like choosing like the beans and all that. And also because I'm espresso bar, or well, not me. Acento is espresso bar. I mean, like I have to have like offerings of different coffees, so people can just come in and just like try. If you want an Ethiopian, a Yemeni, or a Mexican, a Nicaraguan, you can get it as long as I roast it, right? So, but yeah, sometimes like last weekend I had like maybe 10 different coffees on offering. So everything from decaf to the blend and everything in between. So I try to just like get, as I said, like few different coffees so people can actually come and just like try them.
Well, you say that it's not you. Acento is the espresso bar, but Acento is you, and you are Acento. It's the same thing. Without you, Acento doesn't exist. So
Yeah, well, yeah, true.
is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want people to know about Acento or about you or about what you guys have coming up?
Well, it's just the fact that as I mentioned it before. I mean, like you come into Acento, it's well that this is what my experience with the people that have come. I think it's really cool that you can actually choose the coffee that you want to try, and I can just like make the drink that you want to try with that specific coffee. So they thought it was really cool, and also my menu is very simple. Everything is espresso based, and I don't have that many sweeteners or special beverages. Let's say like that. Let's put it like that. Like it's simple, but it's just like for me, it's more about the coffee than whatever you mix the coffee with. People have been coming over. It's just like, well, do you have anything new? It's like, yeah, I have a Guatemalan coffee. It's like, but how about the drinks? It's like, yeah, it can be a latte, a cortado, a espresso shot, anything you want to be just like within the my offerings of drinks or beverages, right? Based off espresso shot of the Guatemalan coffee. But yeah, I mean, like they some people that are expecting more like I don't know this pumpkin spice lattes or the nutmeg lattes. It's like I mean, like I have a Starbucks up the road or Marea Coffee Roasters. They'll cater for you for those things. But yeah, definitely me. It's just like it's very simple: vanilla, mocha for the chocolate for the mochas, chai, and honey cinnamon lattes, and that's it. And it's just like ice or hot, and that's it. Right? It's simple.
Yeah, it's simple, and you let the coffee speak for itself. That still sounds like you got quite a bit. I mean, there's enough for everybody to find something.
Yeah.
I'm really just thrilled for you that this shop is up and running. I know it's something that you've wanted for a long time and that you've been working towards. I really appreciate you coming on the show and spending some time with me to talk about it. And I can't wait to tell people about it and get down there and see it in person myself.
Yeah, I'm like, come on over. Like, I'm just waiting for you, mate. I already get vaccinated, so hopefully you did too. So you're just like, it's easier for you to come down here.
I'm hopeful that by the time this airs, I'll have gotten vaccinated, but not yet. I'm hopeful. Very close.
Okay, cool. Yeah, fingers crossed.
It's great to see you, and thanks for being on the show, bud.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me. It was exciting, and it was great to see you, Ryan. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Did you know The Voice of San Diego is the region's most popular public affairs podcast? Every Friday, hosts Scott Lewis, Andy Keats, and Sarah Libby break down the biggest news and the biggest moves in San Diego politics. It is a must-listen for local news nerds. Listen to the Voice of San Diego podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including wherever you're listening to this show. But wait until this one is done. Now back to the Roast West Coast Coffee podcast. At Acento Coffee Roasters, Luis keeps it simple. His focus is on the coffee. You almost always find a Mexican roast on the menu as a nod to his roots, and the house Ethiopian blend El Idolo. Ask for either in the Fredo, and they'll know you're a local. It's a shot of espresso stirred with honey, then poured over ice, shaken not stirred Bond style, and served cold in an 8-ounce glass. Be sure to follow at acento.coffee.roasters on Instagram, or head over to the shop in Bay Park. You'll recognize Luis right away due to his unique patois, and he'll be the one talking to everyone else, and I bet he'll find a way to connect with you too. Luis mentioned that he worked under a Q grader at Global Coffee Traders. That term has come up in this show before, but I don't know that we've ever explained it fully. A Q grader is like a wine sommelier, but for coffee. The Q stands for quality, and that comes from the company that does the certifications, the Coffee Quality Institute. Q graders are trained extensively and intensively on the art of cupping, or tasting for flavors, both good and bad, and for objective flavor concepts like sweetness. Remember that flavor wheel we talked about in Season 1? A Q grader is training to be able to taste all of those various flavors, and so much more. They're also examining aromas, reviewing green and roasted coffees, examining body, identifying roasts that have been correctly roasted or not. It's an ordeal. The testing to become a certified Q grader takes only a week, but it is very intense. Some estimates put the number of applicants who pass at less than 50%, and less than 5% of those who do pass do so without needing to retest on at least one of the categories. Check out roastwestcoast.com for more Q grader details and links, as well as descriptions of some of the popular Aussie coffee drinks that Luis was making when he got his start on the espresso bar in Sydney. Thank you all for listening to the show today. Roast West Coast will be back on Friday with a new episode of Coffee Smarter featuring our friend Chris O'Brien, who digs into cold brews. To everyone who has been out advocating for this show, thank you. Telling a friend, convincing them to give this show a listen, is the best way to support the show. Well, the second best way. You can also sign up for a paid subscription on roastwestcoast.com. The content is the same as the free one, but with opportunities to be a guest, get show callouts, or even some discounts and freebies as we go. Mostly it's just a sign that you're appreciating the show and want to hear and read more, like a tip at the coffee shop. Speaking of which, don't forget to check out this show's industry legacy partners: Marea Coffee, First Light Whiskey, Cape Horn Coffee Brokers, Leap Coffee, Zumbar Coffee and Tea, Steady State Roasting, Cafe LaTerre, Coffee Cycle, and Mostra Coffee. A big thanks to Joe from Marea for the coffee sampler pack that showed up this week. I'm looking forward to digging into them. For anyone who listened to the recent Coffee Smarter episode, where Siri and I talked about caffeine, there was even a Lorena blend, which we learned on that show is naturally lower in caffeine. You will find links to all of the roast industry legacy partners right on the front of roastwestcoast.com. That's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I've enjoyed sharing one more show with you today. I really appreciate you listening and learning more about coffee and the talented SoCal coffee professionals in this community. This episode of the Roast West Coast podcast was written, produced, and recorded by me, Ryan Woldt. I hope this show has found you happy, healthy, and with at least enough sanity to make it through the day. And please, always be sure to drink good coffee.